Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma Hari Ananta Hari Katha Ananta. Once again, with all blessings from Ayodhya, Ram Janmabhoomi, and blessings and grace from the lotus feet of His Holiness Shri Ram Kinkar Upadhyay Ji and Her Holiness Didima Mandakani Ji, we are back to take another deep dive into our own lives. We have been discussing the Mercury Saturn retrograde 180 degrees opposition placement. The retrograde of Mercury is going to last from 23rd August to 14th September. Mercury and retrograde, direct Mercury and retrograde Saturn are already face to face. So, the protocol of our lives, the way we should conduct our lives, the rules and regulations, the behavioral requirements, these are the factors, the facts which are unknown to us. This is what causes our ignorance, our ajnanata, and because of this ignorance, because of lack of knowledge of protocol, we are suffering, and our suffering continues endlessly. As discussed in the last video, the COVID protocol was mandatory, and non-conformance with the COVID protocol resulted in innumerable deaths. So protocol is what is very, very important, and these are the times when the protocols are given to us, and these retrograde seasons are the times when we are supposed to sit back and make necessary connections. It's a service time. You have to service your car. 365 days if your car is running, it is going to break down and it is going to result in a major accident in which you may also be involved. So you have to give service time. You have to give maintenance time. So this service and maintenance time is the retrograde phase in the planetary movements. So we were discussing with reference to the mythological story of Samudra Manthan, the churning of the ocean of milk, that whatever is our desire, to obtain our desire, to fulfill our desire, we have to put in some action. We have to make an effort. So our effort is that action of churning. Our desire is that Amrit. We human beings are represented by the Devatas and the Asuras. To make an effort, we have to use our intellect. Our intellect is the Mandarachal Parvat mountain, which is otherwise inert, non-functional. Moment a desire, a question, a query arises in our consciousness, then the intellect starts working. So that desire, that query, that seeking is represented by the Vasuki serpent. And despite all our intellectual and physical pursuits, our efforts and endeavors can fail, can be totally disastrous, can yield zero results if our anchoring, if our fundamental shelter and connection with the higher divine consciousness is absent. If the tortoise, the Kurma avatar of Vishnu, did not appear and uphold the Mandarachal Parvat, the entire Samudra Manthan process would have been cancelled, would have stopped. So our life efforts, whatever we seek, all our desires, our fulfillments, all our efforts, all our intellectual brain work, everything will be insured, everything will be guaranteed once we are plugged into the divine higher consciousness. So we have a very well-known popular hymn, a Sanskrit sloka. Karagre basate Lakshmi, Karamadhye Saraswati, Karamule tu Govinda, Prabhate Karadarshanam. In our Sanatan Dharma, in our ancient tradition, the moment we wake up, we are supposed to look at our two hands, our two palms, and utter this sloka. Karagre basate Lakshmi, Karamadhye Saraswati, Karamule tu Govinda, Prabhate Karadarshanam. Prabhate Karadarshanam. In the morning, once you wake up, Karadarshanam, see your hands. So, Karagre basate Lakshmi, at the tip of our fingers, who is abiding, whose abode is it? It is Lakshmi's abode. Lakshmi, as a resource, as a Shakti, wealth, is abiding, is residing at the fingertips. Karamadhye Saraswati. In the middle of our fingers, who is abiding? Who is residing? The Saraswati, the goddess of knowledge. Karamule tu Govinda. But at the base, at the root of our fingers, of our hands, is Govinda, is the God principle per se. Not any particular deity, but God principle, Ishwar tattwa. So, whatever we are trying to achieve, whatever is our effort, as we have seen in the Samudra Manthan narrative, that we employ our wealth, we employ our knowledge in order to achieve our goals. But the higher divine consciousness, which is the fundamental, which is the edifice, which is the root, the base, without that anchoring our resources of wealth and intelligence and knowledge, will not be able to deliver necessary results. That is exactly what happened in the Samudra Manthan. The Vasuki Nag was coiled around Mandarachal Parvat, the Devatas and the Asuras were pulling it, but the Mandarachal Parvat began to sink. And Vishnu, Godhead, had to appear, had to incarnate as the tortoise avatar, Kurma avatar, and he held the Mandarachal Parvat. So, Karagre basate Lakshmi, Karamadhye Saraswati, Karamule tu Govinda, Prabhate Karadarshanam. This mantra, this sloka, chanted every morning, reminds us when we begin our day that this is how we should operate. This is the protocol of our material life. Now, one thing which is very important is that we do not understand, there are several difficulties in our understanding. There are several difficulties of ignorance. Now the mind, the human mind is very, very important, because it is the mind where all the preparation takes place. As I mentioned earlier, in the English language, mind is one word for the whole mental domain. But in the Sanatan Dharma, as I have mentioned in previous videos, mind is not just one word. There is manas, there is chitta, there is buddhi, there is ahankar. Ahankar is the I-ness. Ahankar is the identification with the body, that I am the body, this is me. Buddhi is that mercurial intelligence, discrimination, discretion. Manas is that portion of the mind which operates in connection with the sensory perceptions, with the indriyas. And whatever the manas does with the help of the indriyas, the smell, the sight, the hearing, the touch, These Indriyas and Manas together, they create an action, a karma, and the impression of the karma which has been created. A karma is created, a karma is completed, and a karma leaves an impression. So that impression of the karma which was conducted is kept stored in the chitta. So Patanjali says chitta vritti nirodha, that the movement inside the chitta vritti, the movement, the action of the chitta nirodha, that has to be controlled. So whatever actions are conducted by the manas and the indriyas, every action leaves behind an impression which is our karma, which is our prarabdha, which is our horoscope. So in this manas, buddhi, ahankar, chitta domain, buddhi is Mercury, and this buddhi, Mercury, intelligence, discretion, discrimination, this component is a soft target, is liable to get corrupted. This is what happened to Manthara in Ramayana. The Devatas, when they heard about Prince Rama's coronation, they approached Devi Saraswati and said that you have to do something about it, this coronation has to stop. So Devi Saraswati went around Ayodhya and found Manthara as the suitable target, whose buddhi, whose intellect, whose discriminatory power could be corrupted, whose buddhi could be injected with the necessary virus. Now, Manthara is a rogi, she is unhealthy mentally. But Kaikeyi does not look unhealthy. She seems healthy, but she is unhealthy inside, internally. The virus existing internally in Kaikeyi's mental domain was activated by Manthara. But Manthara's virus, Manthara's mental distortion was already activated. So Manthara's mental distortion was easily available to Devi Saraswati for necessary corruption, for the necessary act of corruption. Later on, when Ramchandra went off to the forest for his exile, his younger brother Bharat came to know, and he also took the decision to go to the forest and bring his elder brother back. At that time, the Devatas again approached Devi Saraswati that all our actions will be undone if Ramchandra is brought back by Bharat, and very likely Ramchandra is not going to refuse Bharat's request. So the Devatas had once again requested Devi Saraswati to corrupt Bharat's Mercury, Bharat's intelligence. But Devi Saraswati at that point totally refused. She put her foot down and said, no, it's not possible. Bharat's buddhi, Bharat's Mercury is not available for corruption. It is perfect. So this mental domain which conducts our life, which is composed of these four components, out of which the discriminatory power of what is right and what is wrong is in charge of Mercury, which Mercury is now in opposition to retrograde Saturn, and which Mercury is going to get retrograde on 23rd August. So the choices we make, the decisions that we take in our lives are under the domain of Mercury, and this is what actually creates our life narrative. So the vikar, the distortion, the virus can be dormant inside as in Kaikeyi, or it can be active outside as in Manthara. So Manthara's desire of this evil desire of stopping the coronation, of punishing Ramchandra, sending him to exile, this desire is represented by the Vat Tridosh of Ayurveda. In Ayurveda, we have three doshas: Vat, Kapha, Pitta. These are three types of situations, doshas as they call it, which create our diseases, create our mental conditions. So Vat is calm, desire. Any desire, small, big, medium, is a Vat pravritti. When a desire is fulfilled, it should bring in satisfaction, contentment in our minds, in our system. But it does not bring in contentment and satisfaction because our Jupiter, which is the planet of satisfaction, contentment, is not in order. I'm sorry to say this, but all our Jupiters are highly afflicted, no matter how good it looks in the horoscope. It's like a paper tiger. So because our desires being fulfilled do not give us contentment and satisfaction, santosh, what happens? Action must have an effect. Further desires for the same things appear in the form of greed, lobh, which is the Kapha vritti, the Kapha dosha. And if my calm, my desire is not fulfilled, then the Pitta dosha appears in the form of krodh, anger. So constantly this cycle is running: Vat, Pitta, Kapha, calm, krodh, lobh. These three, this triangle is a perpetually active triangle in our life, creating and destroying us. In the zodiac, every sign has a Vat, Pitta, Kapha connotation. Every planet has a Vat, Pitta, Kapha connotation. So this calm vritti, that is why the control of the senses, niyam, this discipline, this control of the senses, austerity is very, very important, because we need to control this. Now, whenever we are concerned and whenever we are occupied with material things, with Vishay Chintan, thoughts of material acquisitions, that is what brings in our vikars. That is what brings in our disturbances in the mind. And from there, we are liable to get into bad company, kusang. This is what the Shastras are telling us. Now, this calm vritti, this desire, is the point where one can get attacked by a virus, as Manthara was a soft target for Devi Saraswati. Because whatever we want to achieve, our desire is so strong, so powerful, that we are willing to do anything. At any cost we want to acquire. At any cost we want to achieve, to get. So, Ravan wanted to get Sita. Manthara wanted to get Ramchandra out of Ayodhya. So later on, Sita wanted to get that golden deer. So once that deep longing, that deep desire, the fire of desire is ignited, then a person becomes very, very vulnerable. And that vulnerable state is the point when a person can be molded and a person can get into bad company and create further trouble for himself. And the protocols in our life which are necessary to create a proper, positive, constructive life, these protocols being absent and these protocols being defied are also a cause of our devastation and destruction. And what is the essential format of protocols? To conduct and construct a very materialistically correct life. That is what we will discuss in the forthcoming next video. Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma Hari Ananta Hari Katha Ananta.